Goyle? Draco sat from his squishy armchair. It was late and they were playing chess in the hospital wing. The rain was drizzling all around Draco, but it was bearable. He could have gone back to the tower, but avoiding his classmates and Potter seems like a better idea. He suspected the cloud was likely to react to Potter's presence in a way that would make his classmates overly suspicious. The mere memory of Potter's kiss softened the rain. Yes? Goyle looked up from the chessboard. Did you? Draco cleared his throat. He wasn't completely sure he wanted to ask his question, but he had to know whether he was going crazy or not. Have you ever seen a white peacock in the Hogwarts castle? Goyle cocked his head. You mean Grumpy? Sorry? Grumpy, Goyle repeated impatiently. Ernie's peacock. He frowned. Oh, right, you've been here the whole time. I forgot. Ernie found it wandering around the castle yesterday morning. He brought it back to the common room, and he and Millie had been cooing at it ever since. Goyle grimaced. Draco joined him. It must have been the same peacock Draco had accidentally conjured. Poor thing, captured by a Hufflepuff. Potter's not happy about it, Goyle went on. He keeps climbing onto his favorite armchair and pecks him till Potter sits somewhere else. Definitely the same peacock. Am I winning? Goyle asked hopefully. Draco looked at the board sadly. He had been trying to let Goyle win just to keep him interested, but that proved to be harder than expected. He shook his hand. Goyle sighed. I have to go anyway. Yes, you do, Mr. Goyle. Madame Pomfrey strode into the hospital wing. It's well past curfew. Goyle yawned and stood up. See you at Transfiguration tomorrow. Draco nodded. He planned to attend his classes, though he thought he might skip History of Magic just because he could. He wondered if he would need Potter to kiss him again. If the cloud remained relatively peaceful, there would be no need to ask him. No more visitors, Pomfrey said, still standing by the door. It's much too late, Mr. Potter. Draco sprang to his feet at once. But Potter brought me homework. He could see Potter standing outside in the hallway. There was nothing in his hands, and he hadn't brought his bag with him. I mean, he came to tell me it was for homework. Draco's excuse was doubtful, and Pomfrey's expression confirmed it. It's very important, Draco insisted. He saw Potter nod earnestly at Pomfrey. Oh, very well. Pomfrey sighed. I need you out of the way so I can make your bed. You have 5 minutes. Draco all but ran outside. Goyle followed him and then stopped to stare at Potter curiously. Fortunately, he left without asking anything when Draco said, "Good night, Greg." Potter looked up at Draco's cloud. It seems to be getting better, he sounded smug. You'll get worse soon, Draco lied shamelessly. The cloud goes positively mad when I fall asleep. Oh, Potter looked worried. I remember. Draco quenched his guilt. Potter now thought the cloud tried to drown Draco every night the way it had on Sunday morning when Draco had drunk a vial of calming draught. Do you think I should? Potter's gaze fell on Draco's lips. The look in his eyes finished the question for him. Draco's mouth went dry. If you don't mind, he said curtly. Potter didn't seem to mind at all, and soon their tongues were intertwined and Draco's fingers clutched Potter's hair. Potter felt so warm and solid. Draco dizzily wondered if Pomfrey would let him use Potter as protective blanket instead. He was sure Potter would prove to be more helpful. My word. They split apart as in an instant. Potter coughed, not looking at Pomfrey, who had appeared in the hospital wing entrance. And that's how a hangst of Upper Barton was defeated, Potter said. We have to read up on those events for our history and magic class tomorrow. Potter nodded to emphasize his point, still not looking at Pomfrey. Well, good night, Malfoy, Madame Pomfrey. He fled. Embarrassed though he was, Draco couldn't stop smiling. Potter was ridiculous, and unlike Draco, he wasn't even in History of Magic and UT class, NEWT class. Cheeks burning, Draco glanced at Pomfrey. The corner of her mouth twitched. I confess, I don't remember Gifford Oleron using that particular tactic when he saw the giant. I rather thought he used an axe. Draco bit his lip and looked away. Pomfrey took pity on him and made no further comments, though she did study Draco's white cloud with a frown on her face. The next day started well. The house elf served Draco's breakfast, and as he ate a slice of chocolate gâteau, he contemplated the familiar wisp of silver and mist he had glimpsed his morning when he had woken up. He was sure he knew what it was and who had been sending it every night. He was almost positive he had spotted a pair of regal antlers in the mist dissolved. You seem cheerful this morning, Draco. Draco realized he had been smiling to himself. He looked at Pomfrey, abashed, but then frowned. She had called him Draco. She never did that before. He greeted her, waiting apprehensively. She had some bad news to impart, he was sure. Pomfrey sat in a chair opposite Draco, that one Goyle usually occupied. I think it's time to face the truth, Draco. I can't cure you. Draco stared at her. You're giving up? I didn't say you can't be cured. I said I can't do it. You'll have to do it yourself. Myself? The air around Draco turned chilly. Heavy drops of rain hit the cloak. The cloud is not the source of your troubles. It's merely a side effect. Draco took a deep breath. I realize it's reflecting my moods, but it's not like it disappears when I feel better. So how exactly can I help myself? What are you suggesting? Should I try to be happy all the time and accept the giant cloud will forever follow me around? Pomfrey looked sympathetic. Once your mood stabilizes, so will your condition. It might not happen quickly, but it will. With a little effort on your part, it might happen sooner than you think. She reached over to pat his knee. Draco glared at her. The cloud threatened to cover her as well, but she promptly moved her head. First of all, I think it's time for you to return to your dormitory. I don't think isolation is doing you any good. You should be with your friends. My friends? I have only one. Draco temporarily forgot he didn't really want people to know that. Pomfrey's eyes widened. And which one would that be? I'm afraid I can't tell whom you're referring to. Mr. Goyle, who spends all his free time keeping you company, Miss Granger, who brings you special notes so you can study, Mr. Potter, who brings you very special notes too, apparently, or Miss Bulstrode, who likes to ambush me the moment I leave the hospital wing and demands to know where will I cure you. She hasn't been the only one to ask. You give your classmates quite a fright when you took the calming draught. They're all worried about you. Worried about themselves, you mean? Draco said, even though he was surprised to hear his classmates had been asking about him. They're afraid my condition is contagious. Pomfrey smiled a little. In some ways, it is. But I think they're more likely to have positive influence on you than you having a negative influence on them. Draco looked at her miserable. You really evicting me? But look at this. He waved his hands, pointing at the rain swirling all around him. Pomfrey stood up and shook her head. "I'm sorry, Draco, but I wouldn't do this even if I didn't think it's for the best. You've been discharged. Please return to your common room and do not attempt to skip your class or fail to write your homework." "But," Pomfrey raised her hand, "if the rain won't let you write it, find someone to assist you." She turned as though to leave, but then added, "I believe you already found someone to help you with your history of magic homework." Draco glared at her back as she left. He considered ignoring her completely and forcing her to bodily throw him out of the hospital wing, but he abandoned that foolish plan the moment he thought of it. He checked the time and concluded everyone would soon go down to the great hall to have a breakfast. That meant he could at least avoid them a bit longer. Of course, he should have known that wouldn't be so easy. Nothing ever went as planned. "I'll do it today, or later I'll pay." Draco swore to the centaur and stormed into the common room. Stormed quite literally, since the cloud has gone wild, spitting rain and rumbling threateningly. "Ah!" cried Ernie when he saw him. Corn flew everywhere, and Draco nearly slipped and fell, but he regained his balance on time. "What the hell are you doing with the corn?" Draco asked, but then spotted the peacock and realized Ernie had been feeding it. Both Ernie and the peacock glared at Draco. Millie, however, smiled at him. All three of them, Ernie, Millie, and Grumpy, were sitting on the floor in the otherwise empty common room. "Are you all eating corn?" Draco asked. "I hear there's actual food in the Great Hall." "We have to feed the Grumpy first," Millie said, "or he'll get grumpier." Ernie gathered the corn with a spell and offered it to Grumpy. The peacock turned its head and refused to eat it. Draco felt vaguely proud. "I charmed it clean. It's fine," Ernie said, but Peacock remained unimpressed. "I don't think that Peacock likes you very much, Ernie," Draco said smugly. To his surprise, Ernie smiled. "Oh, yes, he does. He's just stubborn, but clever, too. I confess he didn't like me first. He gave me quite a fright when I first found him. He ran at me like a bull, but he had merely been scared and had sensed weakness. He's really quiet, a cuddly creature when he's content." Draco scowled. "He's probably not hungry anymore," Ernie concluded and stood up. "I'll go fetch my school supplies," he told Millie and leaned down to kiss her. The peacock made a pathetic sound and Millie and Ernie split up laughing. "I love you too, Grumpy." Ernie patted the peacock's head and then must have realized what he had just said because his cheeks colored. He mumbled something incomprehensible and ran upstairs. Millie shook her head, still laughing. "That peacock conjured, you know that, right?" Draco told her. "It comes with the expiration date." Millie shrugged. "What doesn't?" Draco stared at her smiling face. "I can't believe you actually like him." "Grumpy or Ernie?" "Both." Millie eyed the peacock and then looked back at Draco. "You know, they're very much alike." "How so?" Draco asked, affronted. "They're both pompous arses," she said and grinned, "but quite cuddly when they're content." Ernie bounded down the stairs. "Coming with us?" he asked Draco, eyeing the cloud warily. "I hear there's actual food at the Great Hall," he added snottily. "I ate," Draco said. Millie paused next to him and on her way out. "I thought you were getting better," she said, looking worried. "I am. The cloud merely has a negative reaction to Ernie's presence." Ernie scowled. "I'm flattered. Truly I am. Though," his mouth twitched, "I presume Harry is more flattered. I must say the cloud has a very curious reaction to his presence." Ernie and Millie fled, both of them giggling, before Draco could say something clever, or at least hex them, Annoyed, he turned around only to see Peacock had settled itself comfortably onto Potter's chair. It did look quite cuddly. Draco stomped off to his dormitory.